Workflows are a really powerful feature. So here's a recipe for using workflows to build an interactive course. So we have a few goals here. I've got a course with 4 lessons. These are 4 videos. And I want students to start with lesson number 1. And then the student should only see lesson number 2 after they've actually pressed play on lesson 1. And then they should only see lesson 3 after playing lesson 2. And lesson 4 only after lesson 3. We'll set up workflows for that. And then finally, optionally, we can build in a 1-week delay in between each lesson so that they're sort of dripped out on a schedule, but we can still trigger them only after the student has actually played each lesson. Here's how to set it up. So I started by recording my 4 lesson videos. These are going to be message templates, and you can create these message templates in a few different ways. One way is to go straight into your library and create them there. But here I have actually recorded them into a conversation, and then I'm going to turn each one of these messages into a template by clicking Make a Template. I'll name this Lesson 1, and then I did the same for all 4 of them. So when I go into my library, I have my 4 lesson videos set up as 4 message templates. Now we're going to create a workflow on the first lesson, the first message template. So I'll go to Create a Workflow. And we want to trigger this workflow when this message has been viewed, meaning when someone has pressed the play button on the video. We can leave this setting set to any guest. Let's take a look at the frequency setting. We can leave this set to only once. And that's pretty important because we only want to run this workflow once when a student has pressed play, and then we're going to use this to show the next lesson. Now in this case, we don't need any ending events. We'll leave these unchecked, and we'll go ahead and click Create Workflow. Next, we're going to add a step or the action. This will be the first and only step in the workflow for lesson 1. And the step type will be send a reply in this conversation. And really what that means is posting a message into this conversation. Now for message type, we want to use a message template, and we're going to select our lesson 2 template, meaning the student has pressed play on lesson 1, that triggered this workflow, and so now we want to post the lesson 2 message into the page. We can leave the rest of the options as their default. Now currently, by default, this step is set up to run immediately, which means as soon as the student plays lesson 1, then lesson 2 will become available within a few moments. But if we want to build in a delay of, say, a week, we can add a delay, a period of time, and set it to 1 week or some other value here. For this example, I'm going to leave it to immediate. I want students to be able to go through the course lessons at their own pace. Maybe that's really quickly, or they can take their time. I'll leave it there, and I will create the step. Okay, so now we've got the workflow set up on lesson 1 to trigger lesson 2. And now we want to basically do the same thing on lessons 2 and lessons 3. So on lesson 2, we're going to create the workflow. We're going to trigger it when the message is viewed. Frequency is left on only once, and we'll create the workflow. We'll add that first step to send a reply. This will be a message template. And the difference here is that we're going to use lesson 3 because here the student is going to be playing lesson 2 and we want that to trigger lesson 3. Again, we will have this run immediately after they play lesson 2, and let's create the step. And the last one will be on lesson 3 to trigger lesson 4. So let's create the workflow on lesson 3. Once again, we're going to trigger when the message is viewed, create the workflow, and then we will add the step to post the message using a message template. And here we are going to select lesson 4. And once again, this will run immediately. Okay, so now we have 4 lessons, and the first 3 lessons have workflows on them. The first lesson will trigger lesson 2, lesson 2 will trigger lesson 3, and lesson 3 will trigger lesson 4. Now we are ready to actually deploy our course with some students. Now there are a few different ways you can go about this. One way is to set up a program where many students can run through your course. We'll cover that in a separate video. Another option is to create an intake page where anyone can submit a request And that should trigger a new conversation to then unfold with our lessons and our workflows. And the third option, the simplest way, is to simply create a one-off conversation and share it with a single student, perhaps a coaching client or someone like that. And you can do this manually, one by one with each student. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to show you that now. I'm going to go to my conversations. I'm going to start a new conversation. And let's give this a title, Course for Trey Castle. That's actually my dog. And this first message is going to be our first lesson. Now I'm going to pull that lesson from my library. So I'm going to go to Library, select Lesson 1, and create the message. Now here is Lesson 1. And as you can see, it has our workflow already built into it and it's already active. So it's ready to go. And all that's left to do is for me to share this conversation with whoever I want to run through the course. So I'm going to go to Share. I'm going to go to Email, and I'll put in the email address of whoever I want to share this course with. I can customize the subject line, the message, and I can send it off. And then the student can click this button. They'll be taken straight into this conversation. They can press the play button. And when they do, the next time they come in, Lesson 2 will show. They play that, Lesson 3. They play that one, and then they'll see Lesson 4. And so that's how you build an interactive course using workflows. And by the way, you can go much deeper than this. For example, one idea is to use threads to create modules with multiple videos, create a much more in-depth course. And those too can be triggered using workflows. So there's a lot more that you can do with this, but hopefully this workflow recipe gave you a good foundation to start building.